Hey, Crown Content Publications followers, viewers, supporters, and listeners. Thank you for clicking on my video again today to see what it is I have to say. If you're new to my channel, welcome to the Crown Content Publications YouTube channel where publishing and marketing meet, of course. If you are new to my channel again and you might be interested in supporting my podcast where we interview authors and entrepreneurs just like you in 2022, check out my comment section where the link to our podcast show is listed or in the description section. Yes, we like to get the inside stories of entrepreneurs, what their journeys are like, what their journeys have been like during the pandemic, how they've been keeping inspiration and motivation this far. And yes, some of our entrepreneurs, everybody's story is different. Everybody didn't go to college. Everybody didn't come from well-off families. A lot of these people, that was the very motivation, coming from poverty, coming from places of struggle, and putting their eye on the prize about what it was that they truly wanted in life. So yes, guys, going into the month of June 2022, we will be interviewing more entrepreneurs and authors. You don't want to miss this. Make sure you check out my podcast show, Spreaker.com/5379253, or you can find the Crown Content Publication show, to make it a little simpler for you, on Spotify, platforms like Spotify, iHeartRadio, and Google Podcasts in 2022. We're excited, and you should be too, because pretty soon here we're going to be streaming these podcasts right here live on the Crown Content Publications YouTube channel. You don't want to miss it. My character as a YouTuber and my character as a podcast interviewer are kind of the same, but they're much different. I'm sure you guys want to see that, right? I know the questions to ask. I know when I'm prying too much. When I say I know the questions to ask, I know as a masses, there are certain questions we have for entrepreneurs sometimes, especially when it comes to business credit and, you know what I mean, our reputation, marketing, and promoting tips for our businesses. This is the type of, material we cover when we talk to entrepreneurs and authors. So, yeah, stay tuned to this channel. Go ahead and hit that subscribe button, because we're going to have more segments like those, just interviews with authors and entrepreneurs for you book lovers out there or business lovers out there. If you're interested in becoming a guest on my show soon, make sure you hit the link in the comments section, calendly.com/crown-publishing-content. Boom, you're going to reserve a slot. I'm going to email you. We're going to talk about the details of your interview and what it's going to look like, and the best part about it is they're absolutely free throughout the year of 2022. This is our special token and thanks to society to help keep the power of business networking alive. Why do I support authors? Well, I myself am a self-published author, right? And I haven't even begun the segments to where I have started a fan club or like a book reading club for my books in general. So I'll probably go ahead and leave more links, because this segment wasn't about my books at all, actually. We're going to be talking about the question, why is rent so high? It's a question anybody can ask, so I may or may not leave the links to my books in the comment section, because unfortunately none of my books are covering topics like these yet. But I'm sure everybody wants to know in 2022, why is rent so high? You didn't ask for it, I didn't ask for it, but at the same time, one thing we all have in common is that we do have to survive. We need a roof over our heads, shelters, a place to protect ourselves, especially in times like these, right? If you think like me, you've probably been asking yourself, why has something not been done in the community of landlords and HUD authorities and I forgot the other name, y'all. Hold on, it's finna come to me. Fair housing, etc., etc. Why haven't these guys come together and really put together a real plan to help prevent the crisis of homelessness across the nation? I'm just gonna give my let me remind you guys, my commentary videos on real and actual events in society are only those, my expressions, my comments, my views about it, right? But why is it that we haven't just come together as a nation and really tried to figure out a solution to prevent the numbers in the homeless communities that are just continuously growing in 2022. When it comes to homelessness, I love that I'm about to comment on this topic of why I think rent might be so high, or why is it so high. Who asked my opinion? Well, it's like when we think of homelessness as the general public, we think of druggies or somebody that just couldn't handle their responsibilities in life, somebody that just couldn't keep a job, somebody who's just a lazy person. But in the new millennium, let me tell y'all, you cannot put those stigmas on all homeless people, because I'm about to talk about some details and some facts when it comes to this crisis. They're simply those. They can be disputed only until we find a solution. All of us can talk about why we think it is this way, why we think homeless community numbers are growing. One of the first things I want to touch on is like shelters in general, and how shelter programs, now I don't want to stomp on them too much. I'm still appreciative that shelters, homeless shelters and stuff like this is out here, but are we paying attention to the fact that many different things before the pandemic can lead a individual or a family or a couple into the journey of homelessness? Being laid off, being fired, because I say laid off and fired first because those are two situations where they're unexpected. Somebody getting sick in the family, right? Somebody, coming down with cancer, lupus, something life-threatening, to where you're literally putting more of your time, your energy, and everything into that loved one over the income you were just recently accumulating. Before you took that loss, before you had to leave your job, before you had to cut hours, right? Why am I mentioning a job? Well, a job is 8 times out of the 10, or some type of work or service somebody is doing out here. 8 times out of 10, I say that because you got some people that get disability income or Social Security. They're kind of like alleviated from this conversation, but I'm pretty sure those who are on those type of fixed incomes can also agree that, rent has just gotten unaffordable somehow. You might have to pinch and scrape a little bit these days just to make sure your rent is paid. Somebody asked me earlier, Miss Whitney, what you got planned for the summer? You and the kids, and I was happy to tell them, why would I sit and pay X amount of dollars in rent, X amount of dollars in bills, X amount of dollars to keep food in my house, and I'm never there? I wouldn't care if it's fall, spring, winter, or summer. I feel like I should be at home and make the best of home and just make home my cave. If I want to shoot pool, or if I want to play checkers, whatever I got to do to entertain myself. But if I'm paying the amount I'm paying in bills and rent, these days I need to be at home. Not to mention traveling. Y'all, traveling ain't cheap. People just, they like to live. I like to call it outside of their means, but they like to feel like they're living life. This is just how most people are. And the tradition has been, oh, summer comes, let's go spend all this money, let's go to the casino, let's go to the beach, let's take our kids on a trip. And I'm not knocking that, but until your income reflects, you can pay this rent that has escalated in the past 5 years, 10 years, and do it comfortably, and pay your bills comfortably, and take vacations off work, and comfortably be able to do that without that affecting your household. In my opinion, what time do you have to go try to keep up with the Joneses, to be out? I know it's a hip-hop song out here talking about, ladies, y'all know what I'm talking about. The song, F-N-word free. So this is supposed to be promoting and kind of encouraging ladies, like, hey, drop the kids off with the men, ladies. Let's go out and enjoy our summers. I don't want to sound biased at all, but guys, look at it. Like, whatever you can be doing to hold your household down. Crown Content Publications wants to know, like, if you will put all that energy and money into your household and you're barely there, outside of a few exceptional circumstances that I can understand. Maybe you're a travel agent, maybe the type of work you do requires you to travel. Stuff like that is understandable. So, what you're doing for work is actually paying your bills whether you're home or not. That's what I'm saying. Unless you're in that category of finances these days. So back to me talking about what leads to homelessness, because I want to start at the root. Like, many things can lead to homelessness. It's not a lot of people's fault that, your felony has to be 5 to 7, maybe 10 years old before, and your credit could be spectacular. You know what I'm saying? Your income can be spectacular. But just something like a felon, let's start there. Something like being a felon could alleviate you out of the running of either needing, being able to get a place in your name. Let's start there. A felon might have to get a cosigner. And then some are out here living that way. But I'm saying, okay, let me keep going. You may be a college student, right? You have a job at a little Domino's or McDonald's, right? You're a college student. You're between 18 and 25 years old. Just kind of giving a rough, kind of like a vision of this, during the pandemic days or the after effects of a pandemic, right? How are we really expecting a 18, 17, because some states you can be 17 and go ahead and start leasing, but 17 through 25-year-old, practically young person to make 2.5, anywhere between 2.5 to 5 times the rent. And they ain't but 18 through 25 years old. Am I saying they're not 18 through 25-year-olds out here not doing well? No, that's not what I'm saying. But majority of society's young people here in our nation are not at that level between the ages of 17 and 25 years old. So yes, you have those parents that say, hey, you can live with me until you get on your feet, and you are able to make that type of threshold income. But once again, majority of population parents either can't afford that these days, or it's not working out. I mean, I never lived in a time where so many young people have actually found any reason to nitpick with their parents and they're ready to move out. You know what I'm saying? It's just a point I'm making. Times are different today. I'm not even talking about rent prices and all of that yet. I'm talking about things that can lead people to homelessness. Young people, if you have the type of family or parents out here that are willing to let you save money, let you pay a few bills in the premises until you get on your feet, we're living in a time where you really don't have any room to disrespect it or, not count your blessings because, once you enter this real grown world, because a lot of y'all think y'all grown because you're paying a few bills in your parents' house. You 27, you 28, you helping around, you helping grandma, you helping mom, you helping uncle them, so you feel like you should have a say. So let me make something clear. If you are not the leaseholder or, you know what I'm saying, even when you have a cosigner, I just feel like you should know your place a little bit because, without that cosigner, would you have been able to get that place? A place of respect, a place of humbleness and humility. Before I even get to talking about, we all know there's an inflation and rent has gone up, and why? Let me tell y'all something. When the pandemic happened, because you already had homelessness crisis, and homeless communities growing before the days of the pandemic even came about. In many states, they can tell you this. There's always seemed to be this little neighborhood or strip in just about every major city Austin, Detroit, you know what I'm saying, San Francisco, all these places had a homeless community before the pandemic. But what we are all seeing take place is those homeless communities grow. So Crown Content Publications just wants to talk about it a little bit today. What's really happening and why why isn't anything being done, about this to kind of, regulate or kind of lessen and decrease the numbers that we're seeing in the homeless community populations today. So when the pandemic happened, y'all, it's like, people really had a good 6 months to see, whether they were, whether they were able to live in the same house with somebody or not. That goes for married couples. That goes for college students that needed parent support. Then, what a lot of people did is when everything was open back up and everybody could go back to work, they were willing to, okay? Not everybody was just sitting back waiting on unemployment, waiting on, waiting on stimulus checks. Because really, when y'all add all that money together, if you didn't make a really, really profitable investment with your stimulus checks and your unemployment money, how is that changing anybody's life? Like, I'm tired of hearing people say people quit their jobs to go home and live off this money. Let me remind society that none of this money has went forth at least almost a year now. So now what is your excuse about why people are still being evicted? Why the homeless population is still, the numbers as vast as they are? Ain't nobody got no stimulus checks and unemployments in a good year now, okay? That's just a fact. I'll go ahead and call this part 1 of this question. Why are homeless numbers growing? Because I'm going to be honest with y'all, I really wanted to have a few people stream with me tonight about this topic, because I don't want to feel like or try to pretend like I know everything that's going on with this situation. But I do know there are people in places who have witnessed certain things in their states or their communities or even in their own personal lives. So when I come back with part 2, we'll be talking to them. I heard this elderly lady's story one day. Let me break it down like this. And she said, she had a sibling. So you can definitely be in your 60s, 50s, 70s even, and have a sibling that, you stay with. And this sibling can know that you have issues, medical issues, and a hard time, just working. So you're on a fixed income. And I'm sorry, I've heard a lot of stories personally where elderly people were abused, literally evicted out of families' houses, because they just didn't want to deal with whatever their family was or loved one was going through. Am I saying the majority of people are doing their elders like this? No. But, don't think for a second everybody is doing things the right way, getting home health practitioners for their loved ones or putting them in, nursing home facilities like they should. I have seen the numbers of the elderly in the homeless community also grow. What about you? Leave your comments in the comment section. I just want to clarify something. People swear up and down the people that's out there homeless just don't want nothing with their life. They've said this for years too. I'm glad I was born in 91. I want to give my perception, my opinion, my expression on this topic, okay? Just wanted to give, an example of this particular elderly woman that I did hear her story before. Like, she was like, I couldn't believe she told me that. And not only was her sibling acting that way, she was actually staying with her sibling. Don't act like divorce cases did not rise during the pandemic. You had elderly couples, like people that had been married 30, 40 years after the stay-at-home order discovered. People that, we're not even at the young people level yet. And the homeless rates I'm seeing with young people and single parents and things like that. But it's like, that was another part of her story. She ended up at her sibling's house not only with like medical issues and a fixed income, but she also had an abusive husband. Maybe y'all need to get some real insight stories out here from police that have actually worked this field. They can tell y'all, yes, we have had domestic violence calls to elderly couples' houses. You know what I mean? Where we had to remove the woman or the man from the premises. So something like that, we should all know that by now. Domestic violence can definitely be, that woman could have had the best job. That woman could have had, everything going for herself. But if she's running for her life from something, yeah, she might have to go through a period of homelessness or whatever she got to go through, a name change, court orders, whatever she got to go through to get back on her feet. So my thing is, when we see people in the homeless community, when we see people staying in tents or, on the bus or in the shelter, why would we all just, society is crazy to me for that. We're going to put them all in one category, and it got to be because they couldn't keep a job, they didn't pay their rent, they don't know their responsibilities. You're like just looking at them as the lesser of us. How does that make sense? We actually could learn a thing or two listening to the homeless community. Listen to people's stories. I'm like, I couldn't believe some of the stuff I was hearing because I chose to have that perception. Some of the stories I've heard in the homeless communities, people were only in that situation behind, other life-threatening situations, or and that, like I mentioned, that can be illnesses, they can be, domestic violence. And let me remind y'all, domestic violence is not always like man on woman or woman on man. Domestic is something you're familiar with. So that could be a problem you was having with a friend you was staying with, a roommate, a cousin, a family member, a job that you decided to leave because you felt like they were abusing their privileges in that job. Yes, it's going to take you making, people tell you all day long. This is another thing I want to call out. Don't stay where you're not wanted. Don't stay where you're not appreciated. Do y'all know what come with taking the step to move forward and really, transition into independence in 2022 and the new millennium in general? Yeah, because independence look all good once a person literally get to their highest level of independence. But I'm telling y'all, it's a process of growth. Boom. I'm not even deep in, you know what I'm saying, this homelessness topic yet. Why is rent so high? And yes, I'm talking about homelessness because we all know when you cannot afford rent, what's the next step? I'm sorry, but living with girlfriend, cut anywhere you stand that you're not on the lease, I'm going to really say, yeah, that you're not on the lease or you're not the lease holder, sweetie, you're homeless. And let me tell y'all, the homeless coalitions in most states, their perception of homelessness has even changed in the past 10 years. What do I mean? Guess what? If you're sleeping at a hotel, a motel, on cousin or best friend couch, back in the 90s or 80s or something, that qualified you as homeless. These days, if you are not sleeping on a park bench or in your car type of deal, in some states, they're saying that sleeping in your car is not homeless. Okay, y'all must ain't checked these stories out in California. I just want to bring them up specifically because this is where we see it probably more and quite often. But I saw a story where whole nurse practitioners, and that's just one. I'm talking about teachers, people with notable careers, could not afford it. They're like, well, you mentioned California. We all know their rent is expensive, but no. I'm saying these stories were out here 5-6 years before the pandemic even started, where they're living out of their cars. Yes, it's a choice or something led them, once again, like I was trying to explain, to that point of homelessness. I would always look at the stories like, when I see somebody sleeping in a car, I know that's unfortunate, but trust me, there are people in tents, there are people on park benches, sleeping outside of stores, like behind the dumpsters and everything. I have seen it all. So sleeping in a car, I would never, as a homeless coalition or a certain level, I'm a certain level of leadership when it comes to homelessness or deeming what homelessness is in a community. I would never say something like, oh, well, sleeping in your car is not homeless. Like, clearly that is. You're in your car. That's not a home. You can't bathe in there. You can't cook in there. But I've seen stories. I mean, y'all, people been finding ways around things. They go shower in gyms. They go shower, at the local YMCA, or they're doing it at work, whatever they got to do. They're saying, yeah, it is cheaper. All I'm paying is a car note because this is my home now, but other things rack up, like eating. Now I have to eat out because I don't have a place to cook. This is what independence looks like, or getting on that track of 100% independence. Is it going to look like that for everybody? No. But we're just talking about it in a new age. Yeah, most apartments. I'm not going to talk about like rental houses or paying a mortgage or none of that yet. Let's start with apartments, y'all. It's a lot of luxury apartments out here, or even what you would consider bare minimum livable places out here that require you these days to make 2.5, between 2.5 and 5 times the rent, depending on what area you go look in. Like these days, don't you just say you want to move somewhere because you heard, that's just the state. You better do some research where you move before you move there these days. Research the area, research the average median rent amount in the area and all that, because this is one thing landlords are going to do. They're gonna calculate your gross income, the gross income of the tenant, the rent amount, and the percentage thresholds, because in most states, it's deemed that a tenant's income, 30% of a tenant's income should be able to pay rent. That part I can understand. Think about that, y'all, for a second. 30% of your income should be able to pay rent. That's just people's, prediction of what things should be. That's what people say for the most part. But when you actually go in there and talk to a landlord just to rent these days, we ain't even talking about somebody with kids. I'm talking about a person in general. Yeah, we ain't talking about a person with kids yet, because y'all so quick to say somebody irresponsible, or, let's really look at what it's like out here. Okay, let's say they make 2.5 through 3, 4, 5 times the rent. Don't landlords know people have other responsibilities like utilities, debt? Because once you move in, your problems ain't over. What y'all thought? Because a person not homeless, once they move in, they find a place, they have other things to work on. Now you got backed up debt from all the people you probably had to borrow from while you were homeless, or credit bureaus that you just backed up on debt with them because you've been homeless so long, or because you weren't able to keep your part of things that you thought you could invest in, and you really couldn't keep up with it. Debt is debt. I'm gonna just put it like that. Debt. When you think of debt, you can think of anything. You might have a backed up car note. I knew a lady that stayed in a shelter, y'all, and right when she finally found at least a room to rent at somebody's house, it's like once you defeat one battle, you still got 10 more to deal with. That's why I say, yeah, we should work towards, decreasing the percentage of the homeless community. Because the longer y'all letting them people sit out there, you're really just ruining citizens. You're really just you putting them, forget 10 steps behind, almost 20 steps behind. Somebody that being homeless for 6 months ain't easy. Imagine a year. Imagine 2 years. Imagine 3 years. All that debt you got still, that doesn't go away. But people main solution, go get a job. Okay, now you got that job. Now you're paying 2.5 through 5 times the rent somewhere, plus your utilities, plus debt, like I mentioned, right? That might be your backed up car note. Back to that woman's story. She finally finds a room to rent. What they call it subleasing, or you just a tenant has, or a homeowner or somebody who owns that property is willing to rent you out a room. So they, of course they gonna want their first share every month. Came to that property with an asset. She might have came with a few assets. But see, people that don't understand the life of a homeless person don't understand, like, bro, and I think they do understand it. It just be weird. You see that's that woman only asset, maybe that car, maybe that overdrawn bank account, maybe the shoes on her feet and the 3 other purse she got. When y'all say y'all opening y'all doors to people, we finna talk about it. That's why I say I'm gonna have to do a part 2 to this. Are you really understanding what all? Don't even open your door to somebody that's quote unquote homeless, or that you claim that you want to help, if you don't understand the levels of homelessness, how long they've been homeless. If it's not concise what that person is about to work on while they're at their premises, of course they should sign some type of contract. Yeah, here, we're going to give you 6 months. We're going to give you a year. We're going to give you 2 years. But, let me know what you're going to be working on. Like, get an understanding with the people that y'all say y'all helping. Because I have met many homeless people. Probably 40, 45% of the 100 of them I met had a story about, it wasn't even that they didn't have a job, or, probably it was just that their credit was bad, so they couldn't, whether they was making an income or not. If a landlord say, yeah, you got a 512, 520 credit score, we're just not going to rent to you. That's crazy. Whether you making 2, 3, 4 times the rent, you don't have enough credit, or your credit is not what we like, so we don't want to take a chance renting out this place to you. I'm trying to tell y'all why y'all homeless communities look the way they do. Then you got, like I say, you gonna have to pay that rent. Let's say you do get approved for the place. Y'all remember what I was on? Oh, I was telling a woman's story. So she come with her assets, cause y'all know I really don't use notes a lot when I'm doing these videos, but I'm trying to get a point across. She comes with a car, but how y'all know she didn't? Y'all too busy trying to jump in her car and use her and tell y'all where she gonna take y'all because she's in your house, but she's paying her portion to stay in this room at your house so she can try to get out of this homeless cycle, whatever led her to it. So if she busy, you know she ain't gonna turn down giving nobody ride. You in their premises. You in their premises, you paying your rent, and if you say no, it's just gonna cause a confrontation, a weird energy in the house. So you feeling like you're trying to help with as much as you can while these people letting you rent a room. But I don't care if you're doing 10, because she wasn't an Uber driver. She might have been behind on that car note before she even began to rent that room. People don't think about stuff like that. So the people that were renting to her sat there, long story short, just practically sat there and watched this lady lose her car when she really could have used the first 4 weeks, 5 weeks, 6 weeks. This was a woman with no kids, if anybody just want to know. To me, she could have used that first 4 to 6 weeks to actually, put time and energy into going work, catching that car note up. Like, it's levels to this. Because how you going to keep a car? How much deeper in the cycle you think you finna go? I told y'all about the homeless community in California where they be sleeping in their cars, and they're nurses and teachers, okay? And other professions. I just wanted to give y'all, like, insight. Like, if these type of people are not able to keep rent or, keep up with their duties and responsibilities in the new millennium, how much more for a person who doesn't have a car? Now, I have seen some stories, some breakthrough stories. With or without a car, you got some determined people out here like, look, I'm finna fix my credit. I'm finna save my money. I gotta do what I gotta do. And they go to shelters because you got some of them that'll charge you. I'm not saying like charge you rent, because like those type of programs, they're like, every time you pay that money every month, when you do move out or you get housing or something, they really give you your money back. They just saving it for you, because a lot of people don't, I ain't gonna say they don't have sense enough to get a bank account, but they might not be in a position to open a bank account. They could have came to the shelter and all kind of debt. They could have came to their kinfolk house or their friend house or their subleasing property, their hotel room with a whole bunch of debt. But guess what? When you rent out a hotel room, baby, you just putting yourself more debt, because you'll never own that room, will you? That's just a place for you to stay off the streets, for you to feel safe, for you to have a place to lock your door at night. You know what I'm saying? For you to take a shower, and then if it's an extended stay, for you to be able to cook on the stove. But yeah, people move in places. Like, it's not the end of their battles, guys, just because they finally found a roof over their head. That's just one X scratched out, because I'm telling y'all, the longer y'all leave people out there that you're pushing them to the homeless community, then you leaving them out there, you taking your time to help them, guess how much more you're setting them back when they do get on their feet. So people be having debt, like child support, for example, medical expenses, student loans. Ain't nobody just out here just paying utilities and rent. That's crazy. People have other obligations in life. They may have family members who need $10, $20 here and there, They may or may not pay them back, but, generally, it's easy to say, no, you got to put you first. Guys, wake up. We're in a pandemic. Anybody call me for $20 today, I can understand why they need it, whether I have it or not. They wouldn't have to tell me anything. You know what? It's a pandemic. Because we all took that stimulus check, so I don't know why people still trying to walk around acting like they not hurting. I don't understand it. Then landlords have another thing where, only so many people can stay in a unit according to how big or small that unit is. Y'all know how they go. They do not want to see you move in those 6 kids in a 1-bedroom apartment. But that would be nice. You have countries where you can rent a small space, what you would call an efficiency, or a 1-room shack with 6 kids. It's countries that's gonna take that money. Them landlords, it's crazy. Like, they not all in your business. Where it needs to be this house size limit to this thing. If If y'all think stuff like that is not another reason or another part of why homeless communities and populations are growing, you're wrong. Think about it. 3 times the rent. I knew a lady. Y'all notice all the examples I'm giving, they were ladies, okay? It may be single ladies, but it is what it is. I know many ladies this done went out here, worked 12 hours, worked 2 jobs, 3 jobs a week, y'all, and still struggle to pay 3-4 times the rent just to make that requirement. Then they want you to sometimes have, you're going to need a check stub, or if you're an entrepreneur, you're going to need some type of, let's say you don't want to mess with banks. You don't have that option. You're an entrepreneur. You better have some type of statement proving your income, like how you are making your money, because they just want to see that you can pay that expense called rent, that you can pay them expenses called utilities, and they want to know if you got a car and if you own it or you rent it. I'm like, what they got to do with with my rent, me and my transportation? But the reason they want to know is because it's like, when we calculate all your utilities, is you going to be able to afford this, or we just going to be wasting our time? Like, it's crazy. I just feel like certain things need to change. By law, though, y'all, like, every state varies. I'm not going to lie, every state varies. But in my research, just about every state has the right to increase rent anytime they get ready. Any landlord want to increase rent. Yes, there are limits to how high they can, like, it has to be. And unless you own, like, a housing program, they got a program called, like, a law called reasonable rent. You know what I'm saying? Because if you're on HUD or something, that's going off your income to begin with. But we're talking about people who are just trying to pay rent straight out their pocket. Straight off of going to work, straight off of having some type of income. It has to be crazy out here. When we know the fact that landlords can increase rent anywhere from 3 to 8%, as long as they give a notice of 2 months in advance. I've heard of stories where people got the notice 1 month and that started the next month. It's crazy. I mean, things are changing out here. And guess what? If you can't pay it, you're evicted. I got a question. Is people even going to eviction court to explain their cases these days? Or do they get that notice and they go on and move out because they feel like, y'all can go to court and actually negotiate. What do you think court is? If somebody sue you, they're suing you for rent. Come in there, you just already feel defeated because the landlord done say, hey, I'm finna take you to court. I feel like people be running from court. Why do they do that? Go ahead and go to court. Let the judge hear your case about why it is you couldn't afford your rent that 1 month, that 2 month. I'm talking about for the people that are able to lease, because we've been seeing a lot of evictions out here that's done led people to homelessness. To have less understandable landlords, to me, now the tenants have to really change and move different, because if my landlord on some different stuff, I can't even help people no more like I thought I could. It's like, if my landlord automatically looking for a reason to put me out, move a new tenant in so he can raise the rent on a new tenant and make some more money, I'm defeated. And whoever I thought I could help or add on to, and what do I mean by help? Why do we think the homeless community is like it is, y'all? Y'all think landlords ain't watching to see if you got somebody spending? I wouldn't care if it's just to help a young brother, a young lady off the street and her 3 kids. They gonna swear up and down you got the young lady living there, which is against most lease agreements. You see, I just mentioned, if we think about it, what 18 through 25-year-olds are able to afford 3-4 times the rent by themselves on average. That's why you got a lot of people, they doing a roommate situation, or they don't care. They don't went and built a bus or a van and just start living out of that, because they like, I'd rather make this one-time huge investment into this camper, or turning my van or bus into a camper, to where I don't have to worry about paying a monthly rental fee, just the maintenance on this camper. I mean, it's 2 sides of this too, because I feel like if more of society would really look at, like, the type of positions we are being put in, what time do you have to really be caught up in everybody else's business? Like, you have your rent. This is 2022. You have your rent to make sure it's paid or paid up for the year. Your utilities, you got to make sure it's paid or paid up for the year. Because I'm going to tell y'all something. when you, for whatever circumstance leads you there, when you end up in a homeless crisis, not only is it hard to come back from, these days, it's gonna be hard out there while you out there. You know what I'm saying? Then when you come back from it, people are already ready to bring up, you know, I don't know what it is with this nation I live in, but they swear soon as you get a place, now you owe everybody back. Like, dang, get that person a good 6 months to go to work, save some money, and get back on their feet is not the word. They may have debt, like real debt out here, tickets and all kind of stuff they done accumulated for sleeping outside at the public park. Do we think about that? Anyways, y'all, so what it is, when the pandemic happened, you had a lot of people realize, like, nah, I want independence. I want to go live by myself. Not just because they found out they couldn't get along with the person they had already been staying with 10, 5, 2 years. It was also like, you know, COVID. You know, people knew that the less people I have in my space, you know, the less likely I am to contract it. So when the demand of housing went up, you had landlords that saw that. Like, oh, okay, people want to rent now. People want to live on their own. They want to have their own, and they willing to pay 2, 5, 3. You know, you got jobs rehiring people back. You had a great, not a great recession, but you had a great resignation. But you also had a lot of minimum wages that was raised to get people back to work. You know, don't think I don't know them facts. But I'm trying to tell y'all the side stories of how I know people who have worked 2 or 3 jobs, worked a job, but it was stuff like having a felony or being sick. When they did work them 2 jobs, if you caught COVID and had to stay at home for 2 weeks, guess how far behind on your bills you were? And your bills were already probably 3 times the rent when it's all added together. Like, you know, they say you need to make 3 times the rent. I'm talking about what some of y'all utilities look like every month by the time you've paid them out. Yeah, you only paying 30% of your income, but when you put car note, lights, gas, car maintenance, you know, food and all that in the house, you probably ain't got but $30 left. So when you caught COVID and you had to sit out for 14 days, you only had $30 to your name. I'm not talking about everybody. Some of y'all are fortunate. You had a savings when the pandemic started. Great for you, and stay on the right track out here. You know, because I've seen people fall in the hands of homelessness all kind of ways, and yes, illness, it has been more of the probably number one I've seen, and that's between all ages these days, because you got people in their early 20s catching heart attacks these days, strokes and everything. You don't know when something unfortunate like that gonna happen to you, and guess what? Until that disability go through, if you don't have somebody to back you or support you until you got a new income coming in, you might find yourself homeless. Do you have the tough skin it takes to live in some program shelter and go by their program rules and come in at curfew until you're able to get the help that you need independently, because that's what everybody wanted, to be 6 feet apart from as many people as they could? You notice ain't many people talking about that no more. And at first you had eviction moratoriums. Let me tell y'all that this eviction moratorium was put in place to supposedly prevent landlords from being able to put you out of your premises, just because you were behind on rent. And we know that those eviction moratoriums were set in place, and they probably lasted about 9 months. But guess what, guys? It's a lot of stories out here where you had landlords, I don't know if they had the right or why they were doing it, but it's already established. People already have these stories. Many people are still homeless. That's why on the Crown Content Publications podcast show, when we're interviewing entrepreneurs and authors, what we call it is the after effects of a pandemic. Because I promise y'all, a lot of people that's out there still in them homeless community populations, and probably done turned to drugs by now. I'm being funny, but a lot of them have. This is not a game. Now y'all telling them they homeless because they on drugs. No, they can't believe what happened to them happened to them. There was a whole eviction moratorium passed, but my landlord still put me out. I showed my landlord the eviction moratorium letter and that I had it signed and notarized, but they still said I had to go. Then you had a lot of COVID relief funding that was released in the past 2 years to help people with things like rent relief and utilities and food and stuff like this. So tell me why I end up reading articles and stories. Also, I might share a lot of what I'm talking about, just articles as reference, in case anybody think I'm tripping. But I remember these stories. People were saying that even with their vouchers, you had landlords out here real life turning down either housing vouchers just because they wanted to be biased. It didn't matter if you had a housing voucher. You had a Section 8 voucher. You had a lot of landlords just turning people down because they could. Or they had a rental assistance, some type of utility assistance voucher. You had a whole program or nonprofit organization willing to pay for this stuff for people. You had whole landlords out here just turning it down. And really, we all saw something when it began to happen. You had a lot of angry people because they was like, why would you, as long as I pay it, that's all that should matter. You see it's a pandemic, but now you're saying you don't have to take nonprofit assistance. You don't have to take a grant check. You don't have to take a cashier's check from another organization for me just because you don't want to. My main point, I feel like there needs to be some type of line drawn between, or laws rewritten or stipulations, because even though the pandemic COVID may not be on the ultimate rise like it once was, we're definitely still, it's funny how a man feel like he can just stand up and tell the country, oh, yeah, so the pandemic is over. We're going to nationally declare that the pandemic, whatever man said it is what it is. We're going to stand up and declare just because we feel this way and just because we're speaking it and we have the power that we do, we now declare the pandemic over. Really? Because, really, now you still got the lingering after effects of how people was thrown off their game. Because they were being told they had to get a vaccination to keep their job. They had to wear a mask in common areas, whether they had a sickness or not. An illness that mask could have made them sicker, like asthma or whatever. A lot of people quit their jobs for many reasons. Okay. Maybe even if they did go find employment, it's not the same employment they had at the start of the pandemic. Are y'all feeling me? Like, you may have just went and got another job that was a little more lenient about it and just made you get COVID testing every 2 weeks, but and make you wear gloves and wear your mask in the common areas, but it probably paid less. That's still affecting somebody's life. That's still setting them back. If they didn't have a savings already, they're setting them back. So yeah, y'all, I'm just talking about because we know the majority of the population is not wealthy. The majority of the population is not the higher class. Majority of the population is struggling people, is struggling Americans. Majority of the population may be a percentage of the middle class, but you saw a lot of the middle class had to turn around and go get SNAP benefits all of a sudden. Had to turn around and go get medical insurance because they really didn't know, especially if they lost their job and their job was providing insurance and 401k before, but now they done quit their job, or they done been fired, or they done resigned to go take care of their sick husband. I saw all type of different situations from the pandemic. One of my other main points, y'all, is that it's funny how all this light is being shone on, rent high now, or landlords are tripping, or the homeless community and population is growing. I'm just trying to remind y'all, the homeless community and population has always existed. You just never paid attention to it until you was you or damn near you going through that situation. Why is that? Well, we told ourselves it's a pandemic, so we're all in the same boat. But a lot of people found out real quick, man, I see what homeless people been going through. And for years, I called them bums. I told them to get away from me when they asked me for change for $5 to try to, seem like people had more of an understanding. They were more humble when this came because, whether it was more long-lasting than others or not, just about everybody in this country went through some type of setback or some type of uncomfortable, rearrangement in her life. Like I say, even if it was short term or long term when this pandemic happened. So why would we sit here and play like there are not people dealing with the after effects or the more long term effects of that whole situation even coming about? It's crazy to me. So I talked a whole lot about women's situations and examples, but I know a few young men out here who was doing great, or what they found great. You got a lot of people just happy with the simple things in life. As long as they can pay their utilities, their bills, and spend a little money on the side where they can, they're happy with life. They're not looking to be big spenders. They're not looking for fame. They're not looking to be rich. Okay. So I heard a few young men's stories, so it was crazy how child support was already turning them up. Let me not be biased, because I'm just me. I know women who personally pay child support, so every arrangement is different. I'm talking about men that I personally heard their stories from. Men with custody of their children, like I said, either custody of their children and the woman's paying child support, or men's stories I heard, up close and personal, where it's like, I was already struggling. See, y'all had this stigma like this, where it was just a norm to say that every man that don't pay child support is just irresponsible. Men go through whatever they go through too. Just because you had a baby or whatever, that just gave you more of a responsibility. Now, in my general opinion, if you were, a child support, payer, you should have been paying it more than ever. If things were normal out here, to the mother of your children, or to the guardians that got your children, or whatever, during a pandemic, because your child just didn't disappear because COVID came. You see what I'm saying? But at the same time, you had a lot of men, just like I just talked about this, who had other debt, who had, rent increase and things like this, to where they simply couldn't give them as much if they wanted to, or whatever. A lot of y'all are fortunate out here. You've been fortunate through the whole pandemic. All I'm saying is try your hardest to remain sensitive to those of us that are less fortunate, those amongst us, I should say, among us, or something like that, not those of us. I'm just saying I've been through certain levels in life too, where I know it ain't what people think. Oh, just go get a job. Sometimes it's people credit history. Something as simple as that. And guess what? You can't find a cosigner. Now you're homeless. It's your credit. No landlord you go to, you're going to have to search high and low in the new millennium to find a landlord that want to work with you with messed up credit. Even if you make 3 times the rent. That might heighten your chances a little bit. You know what I'm saying? So, people are finding ways to survive, but for the most part, the general public does have a problem with increasing rent prices. This is on rental houses, rental apartments, rental condos, you know what I'm saying? Okay. That's why I'm finna have people that I'm streaming on here with me to talk to y'all about those that own homes and their mortgages, and how they feel like mortgage payments were even a little cheaper than, paying rent. Okay, so that's real too. But then you got people that converted buses and not trains, but like box cars and trucks and all this different stuff, vans, into whole homes, so they didn't have to deal with rent or mortgage at all, because they're just over it. I challenge us all to be more sensitive and do more research of what all has changed in the past 10-15 years. I can't get it all out in one segment. I just thought this would be a great topic today. Not only why has rent prices increased, but why are they steadily increasing? Well, you got housing is one of those things that's just more in demand, Not only that, you got a lot of refugees, immigrants still coming over here, which makes the housing market even more competitive, because don't them people got to stay somewhere? There's other things to consider. The next time you just look at a homeless person and say, that's a ball, something must be wrong with that person must have did something. Like, there are multiple circumstances. Number one, they could lead a person to that situation. You know what I'm saying? It is what it is. Let's say you rent a room out from somebody. They just don't want you there no more. In the, certain states, I was finna name a state, but I know one specifically. A job itself does not have to give you a reason for why they fire you. And I knew when that law right there changed, which was years before the pandemic, when that law right there changed, I could smell trouble coming. Like, what you mean? What you mean an employer no longer has? It's a specific state. I ain't gonna name it. Y'all, I'm challenging you to go do your research, since everybody's so quick to judge. You got whole states out here who can legally fire you for no reason at all. years before the pandemic. So you try to take them to court if you want to and say, yeah, Your Honor, they fired me for no reason at all. They gave me no explanation. In this specific state I'm talking about, the judge don't look at you, well, your employer had a legal right to do it. I don't know, it's crazy. Like, stuff like that really exists. My thing is, a landlord, I believe, in certain states also doesn't have to have, in certain states, can evict you anytime they get ready, and they don't have to have an explanation. Check the laws in your state when it comes to housing and tenant rights, because landlords have rights just like the tenants do. A contract is a contract too. Make sure y'all reading all the way through those lease contracts wherever you sign a lease at. If it say no pets, why would you bring a pet in there? Are you trying to create a homeless situation for yourself? Because it's a demand for housing these days. People are trying to rent anywhere they can. I know a man right now got a 3-bedroom home and it ain't nobody but him in it. But guess what? He went on and leased it because his credit approved him to. He can afford it. And he probably would prefer a 1-bedroom. But it's like, look, this was the only thing I could find in the area. It's a whole 3-4 bedroom. Ain't nobody but him there. You see? So people in different situations, it's either be homeless or am I going to pay 3, 4, 5 times the rent, plus my accounts being monitored if I make more than $600. If I get any deposit more than $600, is now being monitored. But this supposed to have went into effect to try to, put more of a watch on spammers and hackers and all of that type of stuff, But this is the day we live in. If you know you have a home or what you call a home, even if it's renting a room out from somebody, renting a hotel, motel, like I wouldn't dare look down on nobody who told me they live out of a motel room and they've been living out of it 6 months. I wouldn't. I would be like, man, you blessed, because I know people sleeping outside the store, sleeping behind dumpsters to stay safe, sleeping on park benches, sleeping on the curb, a motel room to housing authorities may not be deemed homeless, which it isn't, like I told y'all. Ask HUD, call HUD in your local area today and ask them is sleeping on the park, is sleeping in a motel room longer than a week or two homeless. They're going to tell you no. And, is your name in the lease in the hotel? No, that room is in your name. You own nothing at that room but what you brought. And if you don't pay, you're put out. So how is that not deemed homeless when a person in that situation? But I wouldn't judge a person because I see them in it. If it keeps you showered, clean, a place to eat, a place to lock your door, you know what I'm saying? I ain't going to say a place to call your own, a place to come back to after you work, even if it's a $7.25 an hour job. Do what you got to do. Don't let nobody judge you because you got to stand in a hotel room. People want to stay that high-minded. They want to stay that high-horsed. But they don't look at the bigger picture of what's going on out here. That's what I see. Thank you guys for tuning in to another segment with the Crown Content Publications YouTube channel. We're publishing and marketing me, and sometimes I give my opinions, my expressions, my views on factual events that are going on in society. On top of interviews with authors and entrepreneurs. A lot of these guys became writers because of what they've been through. A lot of these guys became entrepreneurs because they got tired of a job dictating. That's crazy. Like, you got a lot of jobs out here, y'all. If you need 3 days off, you done gave them all this hard work, sweat, blood, and tears. And as soon as you ask for 3 days off because your husband caught COVID, you had a lot of jobs, true colors showed. No, we need you at work. Some did give COVID leave pay, but it was only for if their employee got sick, not if family of the employee got sick. And family needed their close family member who had a job to care for them for a little while. You got a lot of different circumstances, once again, like I said, that just simply led people to homelessness. Somebody left a bad relationship or a relationship that just wasn't going to work. But we do have to begin to assess our lives out here, guys. We're not living in a time where you just lay up and make babies no more. There's a shortage on Pampers and milk. We're not living in a time where you can just play with your time and move in with somebody after 2 and 3 weeks. And them type of silly games people used to play out here. And, because you feel like you fell in love that quick. You can find yourself, if they never add you to the lease, very well much homeless, no matter how much they told you they love you, no matter how much they took care of you at the beginning of your relationship. This is a whole new time, young people and older people. Everybody should be so focused on making sure. I hear other people saying stock up, but no, just making sure. That's why you had a lot of people on it. Like, yeah, I gotta go get my own, because if this were to ever happen again, a shortage on toilet paper, a shortage on water, rental increases and stuff, I know that if I'm just taking care of myself, I might have a chance of surviving. Nobody got time to be staying where they don't want to be wanted and they picked on and abused no more. Like, this is a new time. People are focused on surviving. So why are rent prices steadily rising? Thank you guys for tuning in, and until next time.